Let's talk about that. Good mythical morning. I got a fantastically depressing and exhausting show for you today. And so before we launch my brand new podcast with the fantastic Call Me Chris. She's blown up over the past year with now 27 million plus followers on TikTok, growing really everywhere. Had a fantastic time. I think you'll love her too. Check it out, youtube.com/ACW. But with that said, welcome back to the Philip DeFranco Show. Not ended up seeing his attorney responding to the allegations, saying in a statement to TMZ, while others have already begun to debunk the claim alleged against him, our client categorically denies the allegation and has every intention of aggressively disproving it and pursuing legal action against those responsible for the defamation of himself on Twitter, saying that this is a topic that he takes seriously and her claim is 100% false, adding, not only have I never had any sexual relationship with this individual, but this claim is solely a manufactured accusation and a blatant attempt for attention during a highly visible fight week, with him also saying that without their consent. I will fight this to the end to prove my innocence. This isn't the first preposterous allegation made against me in my career, and it most likely won't be the last. With him ultimately closing by saying that dealing with liars, fake news, and false accusations is part of his job and he won't back down. Following all of that, we saw not looking for gifts or money. I made it very clear that all I wanted from him was an apology and for him to stop doing this to people, with her also claiming that a minor came forward to her who also had a similar experience with Jake, with her then thanking the people who have stuck up for her. You also saw the likes of Julia Halbanel, who describes herself with this story. We have to wait and see what other developments we're going to see. Is there any more evidence? Are there other stories? And well, definitely we've seen a lot of people throwing out their opinions on this, saying this person's lying, this person's lying. One of the interesting conversations and debates that's popped up is Jake Paul and his team pursuing legal that think that Jake is telling the truth, that she is lying, saying yes, that's exactly what he needs to do. Go after her legally. Make an example out of someone that is making a false claim, because false claims hurt actual victims. But on the other side of this, you have people saying, no, Jake Paul's denial is BS. He is lying. This young woman, wait to see what happens from a legal standpoint, what stories come out, what evidence comes out. I do want to pass the question off to you. What are your thoughts on this whole situation right now? And specifically regarding the legal action that's being talked about here. What camp do you land in? Are you somewhere in the middle? I'd love to know. And then Monte Wright has now been arrested and charged with second-degree manslaughter, a charge that in Minnesota carries a maximum penalty of 10 years in prison and a $20,000 fine. Now, obviously, we're going to have to wait and see what happens with all of this, and every situation is different. But in a New York Times review, police shooting people were only indicted 5 times, with 3 getting convicted. But, you know, the news of this charge just coming out now, and we're going to have to wait to see what happens next. But from that, let's pay some bills and thank the fantastic sponsor of today's show, Juneshine. And if you didn't know, Juneshine is a hard kombucha. Artists and creatives, Juneshine is the better-for-you alcohol that's refreshing, gluten-free, and easy on the digestive system thanks to the probiotics. Their midnight painkiller flavor has hundreds of 5-star reviews and is 6% alcohol. Though the new chili mango is easily my favorite, though you can never go wrong with the classic blend, were previously known to the public. This, including explicit intelligence about the potential for violence warning that Congress itself is the target. In fact, the police department's own intelligence unit warned 3 days before that the Trump supporters, spurred on by his false election claims, were targeting Congress and could become far on how big the failures were. And as for what happens next, you had the watchdog reportedly listing more than a dozen recommendations, including new training, addressing communication failures, and centralizing intel, with some lawmakers from both sides saying that they hope to use the report's findings to better secure the Capitol, and cost about $2 trillion. Now, with all this, Biden had previously said that it would be hard to meet the date after taking office, but even with the extended timeline, many experts and defense officials have warned against this move. Where the U.S. first entered the war to oust the Taliban government, which was harboring Al-Qaeda military, now, almost 2 decades later, the group is the strongest that it's been since the 2001 invasion, and, in fact, according to reports, it has influence or control over half the country. And what's more, the situation has gotten worse in recent months after Trump, during his last week in office, reduced the official number of troops since 2001. As the U.S. has scaled down its operations, the Taliban has taken control over major highways, tried to cut off cities and towns, and surges that have exhausted Afghan security forces. Violence has also ramped up in recent months. In fact, according to a UN report released just today, nearly organizations present an immediate threat to strike the U.S. from Afghanistan. And while reportedly that assessment has played a big role in Biden's decision to withdraw U.S. forces, many experts are now more concerned about how the move will impact Afghanistan and its citizens. In fact, the Pentagon has warned against removing American troops from the region at this time, given the conditions that exist on the ground in Afghanistan. And adding a full withdrawal from Afghanistan is dumber than dirt and devastating devilishly dangerous. President Biden will have, in essence, canceled an insurance policy against another 9/11. But on the other side, we've seen Democrats arguing that the U.S. presence is capable of defending its people and country, which they have been doing all along. But at the same time, the Taliban has focused more on the fact that the initial timeline has been delayed, with the spokesperson saying, "We are not agreeing with delay after May 1st. Any delay after May 1st is not acceptable for us." Right now,
got in his car and chased the gunman down and held him for police.
The shots rang out and
Directing traffic around the site.
She did the slow and the stop. You know, she had the sign and getting us to slow down. We'd come on the island. Very nice.
Boyfriend is being questioned by police who say that all three people knew one another, though it's not yet clear how.
Understood. They were doing work, you know. Wait for the traffic. It wasn't a big deal. I don't know how anybody could be that angry.
Fired the shots is 67 years old.
Brian is whining about this week. He's particularly flustered about Tucker Carlson revealing the Democrats' endgame regarding mass immigration.
So many millions are being seduced and being deceived by an alternative reality. Trump is not really the leader of this anymore, playing the pro-Trump riot of January 6th to mainstreaming a white supremacist conspiracy theory. And I know, Tucker's been here before. Remember that time he said white was a hoax? But his comments this week, on Thursday, were another new low. Identify the so-called white replacement theory by name. This is something that's fringe, often on racist websites, but he played it out for his viewers to hear. And it's been played a lot. I know the Fox segment has been played repeatedly, so I'm not going to air it here.
To continue complaining and try to convince Fox News to fire Tucker Carlson.
So what do we want Fox to do? I mean, first and foremost, Tucker has got to go. Again, I think it is a risk, not just to the corporation, it's a...
And then went where few pundits would dare go, expose the ADL for the hypocrites that they are.
Go to the Anti-Defamation League's website sometime if you'd like a glimpse of what an unvarnished conversation about a country's national subvert its own sovereign existence and nationalist identity and become a vulnerable minority within what was once its own territory. End quote.
You see, the establishment doesn't want people to criticize their plans for the New World Order until it's already too late to stop them. Or they've already... California used to be a red state, literally a Republican majority state until the early 1990s, but then changed because of mass immigration, or that Texas is now a purple state and might actually go blue because of the changing demographics. You start pointing things like that.
CNN managed to get Trump out of office, their words, and Chester calls CNN propaganda.
Yeah, I mean, like Trump, we did it. Like when Trump was, I don't know, like his hand would shake fit to, you know, whatever. We were creating a story there that we didn't know anything about. You know, so that's I think that's propaganda. You know? We had nothing else to run with at that time. We were like, just to keep hurting him and make it so that it can't be parried and like just, you know, settled outside of court and just like, you know, if we keep pushing that, it's helping us. That's propaganda. It's helping us.
It's more than lying by omission or just being a propaganda network. And I say this in all seriousness, not being hyperbolic. They are evil. They are servants of Satan. And this week they're focused on whipping everybody into a frenzy over the fentanyl Floyd trial, and then
Now, today, Wendy Birch actually spoke to Paul Flores' mother. She'll have more on that.
Including attempted murder. News 8's Steve Price explains how the standoff took a deadly turn.
Inside the car with Marquez, an unidentified woman. It's still not clear who was driving, but officers say at least 3 a rifle. Then, Tuesday morning, about 11 hours into the standoff, SWAT officers perched above the dumpster.
She was pulled back in on several occasions. The latest of those, she began screaming and begging for the mail.
Determined yet if she will face any charges related to this incident. No officers were injured. With Marquez on